Awesome. So we're right on time. And hello, everyone. It's our final day at the D2C Growth Stories. And although I'm kind of sad on one hand that it's ending. We're right on time. And I'm sorry, there's a glitch. Okay, all good. So yeah, although I'm a little sad that it's kind of ending on one hand, and also because Cos couldn't join in today, she got the flu, so I'll be hosting it on her behalf. What I'm truly excited about is kind of, hosting a very, very wonderful person today, Kara from BackEmbrace. She's the founder at BackEmbrace, a brand that was kind of born out of Kara's own necessity initially. And right now it has turned out to be a massively successful brand in just 2 years. So an interesting thing to note about here is that Kara single-handedly managed everything to bring the product to the market, from design to marketing to operations and beyond. So that's quite a tough job, to be honest. So over to you, Kara. Tell us a bit about yourself. First of all, before we dive into BackEmbrace, would love to know about your journey, because you were working in accounting before.
Yes.
And now you're the founder of a D2C brand. What has the transformation been like? And
yes. Well, thank you. It's been a wild ride, but it's been truly amazing. So just a little background. I'm from Nashville. I moved out to LA because I wanted to just have a complete life change, and it sounded exciting. And I moved to LA, and I was still doing accounting, which is what I majored in. And honestly, it was not something I was passionate about. It was just like I needed something that was going to pay the bills. And I think I had a number of professors who kind of like pushed me towards accounting. And, my family said, you'll always have a job if you go into accounting, it's stable and da, 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 da. So I'm like, all right, I have this whole like creative side of myself, but I didn't at the time, I guess, see how that could translate into success. I think kind of where I'm from, a lot of the like super successful people pursue more kind of maybe more conservative paths of like finance, accounting, they're in like healthcare and stuff like that. And so I think in my mind, I had envisioned success as, okay, I've just got to like trudge this road and focus on this, even though it doesn't excite me and it's not anything I'm passionate about, but I just, you got to do what you got to do. So here I am on this path. I was working for a startup in Marina Del Rey, California, and it was a PR agency. But I was back behind my monitors, in Excel sheets and doing all these boring things. Meanwhile, I'm watching like there's a conference room that's nearby. And they always had the door open. And in that room, they had all the meetings with new business. Uh-huh. And so, people who wanted to learn about PR and what our capabilities were and how PR could really grow their brand. So I'm in here just like so bored, just like doing my spreadsheets, but I'm like listening to the conversations of these entrepreneurs who've come up with these ideas. They've come up with solutions to problems, and just so much passion and creativity. And I just was like, wow, that's just, I just found it so admirable and inspiring and just invigorating to see people who come up with an idea, just, bring it to life. So meanwhile, but I'm back like behind my desk, crunching numbers, and I just kind of thought like one day, maybe that would be me, but I never really saw a path forward to that. In the meantime, working super long hours, doing accounting, and kind of operations, I developed all kinds of strain and tension in my neck and shoulders. Mm-hmm. And I started going to the chiropractor. I started going to physical therapy. I started, doing some strengthening exercises to really strengthen my back. But I realized it was really this, being kind of stagnant in front of the computer just for extended periods of time. It's inevitable that, you'll feel some aches and pains because our bodies are really not made to be, stagnant for hours on end. So anyway, I tried a posture corrector that I found at a local store. And what I noticed was when I put on this posture corrector, it did pull my shoulders back. When my shoulders were back, kind of my neck was in better, improved alignment, and it alleviated a lot of tension and strain. And I was like, okay, great. Like this is like this intermediary solution. But what I found was the straps were really bulky. They're very padded, and I kind of like put a jacket on over it. And then I'm like, okay, I look like either I'm trying to be this like 80s, like, person, or like the big shoulder pads, where I look like a football player. And I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't really work. And then it had these like kind of buckles on the back. And I was like, well, that's not cute. In fact, someone in the office was like, oh, look at Kara. She could like hang glide from the ceiling with her posture corrector. Just, and I was like, oh my God, this is super embarrassing. So it was something that I would just literally put on when I'm like hiding behind my monitors. But if I had to get up to go do anything, I'm like, no, the thing's coming off. Because it was an eyesore and not that attractive. So I started looking around for other solutions. I think I ordered nearly every product on Amazon that I could find, and, orthopedic type stores. What I found was, I just wasn't impressed with the selection, the quality, the effectiveness of these products that I tried. And I really I opened them up and I kind of dissected. I was like, this is what works about this. This is the downfall about this one. The material's cheap, it's chafing to the skin. So this was just kind of like a fun little like creative outlet for me. And I decided to just kind of create something for myself that would be helpful. So I went home for Christmas that year, and my mom is a great seamstress. We went to the fabric store and like picked out some little pattern. She basically sewed a cover for that existing one to cover the buckles and to cover the straps. And so it made it a little cuter. And so I was not embarrassed to wear it out. So I'm wearing it out and people are literally stopping me, asking like, oh my God, what is that? Like, what, and I said, it's a posture corrector. And they're like, oh, I need one of those. And I thought, you know what? Like, you don't have to have suffered some, severe injury in order to have this tension and strain. And it's just becoming more and more so, as so many of us are glued to our laptops or our phones, looking down. So I saw that there was such a need, but there wasn't, a great solution. So at the time I thought, why don't I just try doing this, nights and weekends, still have my full-time gig. So I was so inspired by Sarah Blakely, actually. I remember reading her story and hearing her interviews where, she was selling fax machines door to door. And, she came up with Spanx because she didn't want to see, panty lines under her when she wore white pants. And I remember it was like, what really hit home with me was that she didn't have any experience. This was not her background, but she had an idea and she created a solution, and that solution worked and it helped people look better and, feel better, feel more confident. So her story really inspired me. And that was always kind of like in the back of my mind. And so I set out to start, prototyping and creating different iterations. And I ended up doing this for, can't even believe it, years. Mm-hmm. And, it was just kind of a hobby. I wasn't really sure if it was going to turn into anything, but I thought I may as well try. So I had a seamstress that I had just met. I'd go to her house after work. I'd have these ideas for patterns. She'd make some. I'd go home and try them on all my friends. I'd grab my interns at lunch. I'm like, hey, can I
Right.
put this in you? How does this feel? How does that feel? You know?
Yeah.
So anytime my friends got together with me, like they kind of just knew that they were going to have to try on
Mhm.
my latest iteration. So yeah, basically I tested on nights and weekends, and I ended up creating a completely unique design. Wasn't just like a facelift for that existing first one that I tried. And I wanted to test the market. So I did a couple of trade shows, medical device trade shows. And I thought, you know what? This is going to be it, because I don't have thousands and thousands of dollars to invest, and I'm not going to go, full steam ahead when I don't really know how people are going to like this. So I just like had a moment with myself, and I was like, okay, I could fall on my face and no one's going to like this, and that's fine because I have a job, like I have stability, it's okay. Or, who knows? Like people may really like this. So I went to Vegas. I had my best friend come with me. We're setting up this trade show, um, and we got an overwhelmingly positive response. It was like our booth just had people were just coming to try it on, and everyone was just so intrigued by it. And I thought, and a lot of these people visiting the booth were store owners, and they placed orders. And I thought, these people know their customers, and they know that they're like, oh, we haven't seen anything like this. We've discontinued the other ones because they were uncomfortable. So yeah, I got an overwhelming number of orders from that first trade show, and that really kind of gave me the proof of concept and the confidence to
Got it.
move forward.
Got it. Got it. So it's interesting. I mean, it started out as your own personal need, right? And then all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
you have scaled it to like so many customers, and you basically built a massively successful business in just a short period of time. I heard that you also got sold out within the first 2 or 3 months, uh,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that's incredible. So just wanted to know, basically, what kind of course there were these trade shows where you went and spoke to customers and all that. What kind of other research went into the design, or in terms of like how you're going to scale this, right? And not just like having one product, right? But uh, having multiple categories in the future as well. How you're going to scale this? Was any kind of research out there? Did you kind of speak to more customers, or also like what were the challenges did you face there, or are you still facing at the moment?
Yeah. So as far as how to scale, I started out with one product once I really saw that there was such a need, and I saw that there were like over 60,000 Google searches for posture corrector alone. I'm like, people really need this. Um, I partnered with because I self-funded, had to be really like savvy with my financing. And
True.
I actually partnered with a class at UCLA, a marketing class, because I remember it always having to do case studies. And so I remember like getting out of work, racing down to UCLA, like sitting like an hour and a half in traffic, getting into one of these night classes and pitching BackEmbrace to these students. And they were phenomenal. They took on BackEmbrace as their semester project, and they had a lot of really they had substantial research over the term of the semester that indicated that this was, that there was a really great market for BackEmbrace, and for these types of products, and that it was only going to be growing in time. So does that answer your question?
Sort of, yeah, it does. So,
Okay.
like you said, you were basically working on a shoestring budget, right? You were bootstrapped initially, and even right now. Uh, but you kind of single-handedly managed everything from product development to, design to sales to even marketing. So all of these kind of require different skill sets, right? And maybe you had a small team initially, or probably you overlooked everything on your own. As an early stage founder, what would be your advice to other D2C founders who might be at your place, managing everything single-handedly with just a small team? Just one or two, top things
Yeah.
you need to keep in your mind. Yeah.
No, that's a really great question, because I think so many, especially early stage entrepreneurs, kind of struggle with that. I mean, we literally have to wear every single hat. So, and I think to an extent, it's really great to wear all the hats because initially it gives you an understanding of what's involved, right? If you just like go ahead and hire someone or outsource something, you're not really able to gauge how good of a job they're doing if you don't have any, intel or insight yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So what I found is I've typically done kind of as much research as I can in different areas. And a lot of times it's just shooting from the hip. It's just like, you know what? No one was just born an expert. This is something that's learned, and every experience, shapes you and helps you to grow. But I think, once you kind of get into it, realizing, okay, I can understand this, but is it worth my time? And can someone else do this better? So that I can focus on something else that will actually have potential to more or less move the needle. So I think whenever I've kind of like blogging, for instance, I think I wrote the first couple of, and we're kind of new on the blogging front, but I wrote like the first couple of blogs. And then as you dig deeper, you're like, oh, well, everything is just very involved. Just like you think it's just a simple thing, but right. It actually it goes deep because, you've got to have the right meta tags, and you have to do the proper SEO research, and you have to really understand the competitors. And it's not just like you throw a blog out there and it's going to rank, for your site. And so, I did the first couple, and it's like if someone else can do this better than I can, and at this rate, I can afford to hire someone else who can do a better job. But at least I understand kind of what it entails. So I'm like, all right, find someone great, do a lot of interviewing. I talk to a lot of people. Sometimes I'd put just something out on Upwork and just, have 10, 12 conversations with different people and just learn, not that you're going to hire all of them, but just to kind of educate. I use that as almost a way to educate myself so that I can then better manage those projects. So yeah, that's kind of how I've done it, and just really hiring the right people. I have a few people who work with me, and I think that is key. People you can trust, people who have the expertise, right. And honest, good-hearted people who really genuinely want to help you succeed.
Got it. That's interesting. I mean, it's ultimately about networking, right? How you kind of network with one another and kind of learn from each other. It's a journey, basically. Mm-hmm. So yeah, now I would love to dive into the nuts and bolts about running a D2C business as a whole, right? So you said basically you had reached out to your first few customers through trade shows and all those kind of meets, right? Was there any other way in which you reached out to them? Like, did you try out UGC and all those kind of stuff to kind of promote your brand? Did you try out UGC, or let's say email marketing or one-on-one networking apart from that?
Yes, definitely. And when I was in Los Angeles pre-pandemic, I did a number of kind of in-person events, whether it was a fitness event, several fitness events actually, or these types of events that have, a meditation and followed by, other kind of health and wellness activities, activities that I felt that my target market, someone who would be interested in BackEmbrace would be interested in. basically, self-development type of events. So yes, I definitely did some of these, in-person events just to kind of create some buzz and get the word out. And also to have that one-on-one contact with people where they get to actually touch and feel the product and try it on before they
Right.
buy, versus just kind of like the cold, like they see the website and they're just, kind of ordering blindly.
That's super
So
important. Yeah.
yeah, so it was yeah, that was also, it was pre-pandemic, then pandemic came, and what was really instrumental for me was working with a publicist. I guess I'll go into that.
Yeah.
I worked for a PR agency. I think I mentioned when I was doing accounting, and I really saw the power of PR. You can have the best products in the world, and it won't matter if nobody knows about you. So yeah, it was kind of funny. It's like, I remember when I finished the first website, and I'm like, oh, so much work goes into it, and the photography and the copy and like getting everything all set. And then it's like, you like in your mind, like you think you're there, or you think that you kind of like arrived at something just because it's like everything that leads up to it, like perfecting the product. And then it's like, okay, where is everyone? And then you realize you're actually only about like 20% there. Now you've got to like get people in, you got to create relationships, create trust with, your customers. So I really understood the power of PR and marketing and how that was essential. And to be honest, I went out on a limb. I didn't really have much of a budget, but I kind of did it anyway and crossed my fingers and hope that it would work. And it really did. I worked with a publicist, and I just got so much media exposure my first year. And that was also at a time when COVID had just begun. People were working from home.
Right.
They had kind of like an alternate desk set up, not their traditional, they may not have their monitor at the right height and everything. So a lot of like kind of slouching, maybe on their sofas. And so people were really like hurting and looking for kind of an easier solution to having, better posture while working. So it was kind of, it was also just, it was great timing for that. But the PR and marketing is what really moved the needle for us.
Got it. So right now, like PR and events, initially, I mean, the PR and event as a growth lever worked for you, right? For kind of building that top of the funnel awareness. So right now, is it PR and events which are working well as part of your top of the funnel activities, or are there any other strategies that you have been exploring as well?
Yeah, so not as many in-person events since the pandemic. That's something that I do think, I think as a result of the pandemic, everyone has realized that you can do so many of these things virtually. So that is also more doable because you don't have to, travel, traipse all your things, bring all your people and set up a booth. So like any kind of chance where you can get exposure, even just doing virtual events, I think is fantastic. So we are starting to do some Google ads and advertising via Amazon, and that's going really well. And then probably branching out and doing some more, Facebook, Instagram type of advertising as well.
Got it. That's interesting. So because you mentioned Amazon, right? Wanted to quickly dive into that. I was just curious about the growth channels right now. Which is working for an early stage D2C brand like yours? Is it like online marketplaces, or is it your own D2C store? Or have you also tried physical retail? Which one of these growth channels are working for you at the moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's really a mixture of both. I am in some smaller retailers. across the country. They're mostly medical supply type of stores. And that's something that I'm also kind of our goal for 2022 is to more heavily saturate like those types of smaller retailers. I love that because I love when the customer actually gets, like, they get to have a hands-on experience. And when the store owners understand the product and people can try it on, especially maybe for older people. It's just, I love that. I love that people can have the in-person experience. And for online, yes, Amazon is just where it's at, honestly. And I get it. It's more convenient. I mean, how many individual websites do I go to buy something? It's like Amazon, it's just easier. All of your payment information is stored. You know what to expect. It's going to arrive. Whatever you've ordered is going to arrive in 2 days. And if something's wrong with it, there's not going to be a problem with getting a refund or needing to exchange something. So Amazon probably is one of my bigger channels. It's just, I think that now people use Amazon kind of like they use Google. I mean, instead of typing a product or something into Google, they do it in Amazon. And I think that's just kind of becoming the way of the world.
Right. So marketplaces like Amazon, I mean, just thinking out loud, I mean, it can be a super awesome channel to start with for an early stage brand, right? It gives you the traction, like you said. But it also comes with so many challenges, right? In terms of lesser margin compared to your D2C stores and restrictions on how you kind of showcase your products there.
Yes.
Right. How do you kind of overcome these challenges, or what's your take on it, basically?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think a lot of people I certainly didn't realize this until I've gotten into the space, right? But yes, you do pay fees to be listed on Amazon Marketplace. At the same time, you're getting exposure to so many more customers. So that said, it's a double-edged sword because you also have more competition to cut through. There's not like 10 brands, there's like 10,000 brands. And so you really have to stand out. Yes, you cannot, I'd love to upload more videos and things to Amazon, but they have to be a certain length and you can't have them here and they've got to be here. Or, if a customer has a question or leaves a remark and say it's about sizing, well, Amazon has put in restrictions so that you can't communicate directly with the customer. So I find that this sort of things to be super frustrating because, you want people to have the best experience. So it comes with those drawbacks. But at the same time, it is great to be on a platform where you can get so many eyeballs and it is, especially if you do Prime, which is, fulfillment by Amazon, you don't have to deal with shipping because Amazon you can't really beat Amazon's shipping. So, and some, you know what I mean? Because they get such a deeply discounted rate. And then also if it gets lost or whatever, like they're dealing directly with the customer. You don't have to deal with that. So it is just for convenience sake. So I guess what you kind of have to weigh, like I always really love having, sales on my website because you really get that customer, you get to create the rapport with them. And then, contact them again for suggestions or new ways to wear your BackEmbrace or new products that come out. With Amazon, that's a little bit, it's limited. And then there's also, of course, the cost to get that person to your site. So when you kind of weigh those things, like, the price to be on Amazon, to pay that fee. So it's like you could equate that to the customer acquisition cost, trying to get that customer to your site otherwise. So
got it.
Yeah, it just seems to be the way of the world now.
Yeah. Yeah, it truly is, especially for early stage brands, definitely. Right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned something about videos, putting out videos for your products as well. And I was kind of going through your website right now. So we see that you have kind of used all these great graphics and kind of aligned them to your entire story, right? And you've put everything together, it looks so fantastic.
Oh,
What are some
thank
of the
you.
things, I mean, you that are working, that you feel are working on your storefront, right? Is it like all these videos that helps you with more conversions? Is it like the reviews or the testimonials that you put up for social proofing? How is it? How is it working out for you?
Yeah,
For your
thank you
D2C
so
side?
much for asking. Yeah, no, that's a really great question. The feedback I've gotten is that the videos are really, really helpful. Being able to see up close, seeing like actually seeing like that the product's flexible rather than just um, a static product. Yeah, I think video is just kind of where it's at now. So videos, and then I did make sure to, when I did this photo shoot last year, um, try to include different body types, so that you can really see how it works on, someone super thin versus someone, more curvy, and also the men. We can't leave the guys out.
Yeah, yeah, that's incredible. I mean, that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, so to try to incorporate different models, different sizes, so that it helps the customer be able to visualize themselves, how would this look on me? Well, what size is this guy? Am I comparable in measurement? So I think that's super helpful.
Got it. Got it. All right. So that answers my question. We are kind of running a bit over time, but I just have like
Okay.
two more questions and I would love to cover
Sure.
those.
Sure.
So right now, if you can round up, you had mentioned quite a few bit, I mean, about the challenges, right? Right now, as the founder of an early stage D2C brand, what are your top 2 to 3 challenges that you would love to put out? I mean, that you'd love to overcome at the moment?
Sure. Um, I would say, I mean, as so many companies have been experiencing supply chain issues, getting raw materials and production has been challenging. I think as a result of COVID, the time lags. So that's something. And I think this whole like e-commerce digital world, I think it can just be overwhelming because there's so much that you can do. So really kind of deciding where to put, especially, if you are self-funded, every dollar counts. So I think it's kind of deciding, where to really harness your energy, where to harness your funds, and and to just kind of test as you invest.
Right, right, right. That totally makes sense. Yeah. So, also, what would be like some of the mistakes, right, that you might have made initially, and you would love
Sure.
others to avoid?
Yes, exactly. I would say, assume assume the worst, like hope for the best, but assume the worst, and have some alternatives kind of in place, like, God forbid one of your suppliers goes under, or something happens. Having, and it's not anything anyone ever wants to think about, because you've got your things in place and you're like, okay, I've got this marketing campaign coming up and this coming up and I want to do, but it's like an insurance policy, and you just never know when you're going to need that. So I would say, kind of having like 2 to 3 alternate suppliers that can do quality work and can supply your specific raw materials, so that there won't be any gaps if one of them doesn't end up working out, or God forbid there's a flood or whatever it is,
Yeah.
that you are covered. And then something else is, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think this goes back to what I was saying earlier. As an entrepreneur, we wear so many hats, and we're trying to do it all. I'll never forget this quote. It's like, it's he, but I turn it to she, but she who is everywhere goes nowhere. And I think about that sometimes because I'll find myself just so trying to do all of these different things. And it's like, just because I can do this doesn't mean it's the best use of my time. And there's probably someone who dedicates themselves to this specific task or this specific area and has more expertise than I do, who can do it more efficiently than me, so that I can focus on things that can, be more impactful. So, yeah, I would just kind of assessing that kind of along the way, so you don't find yourself, deep in something where your time could really be used more valuably doing something else.
Got it. That's a wonderful note to kind of end on. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing
Thank
your
you.
insights, and definitely kudos to you on single-handedly managing everything and building such a successful business in just like 2 years. And
Thank you.
that's a wonderful thing. One super important takeaway for me is that, like you said, just network, right? Not with the intention of acquiring someone as a customer or as someone in your team, but network
Mm-hmm.
and learn from them. It's like a journey, right? So that was a wonderful takeaway. Thank you so much, Kara, for your
Thank you so
time.
much. Thank you
How?
for having me.
Yeah, sure. I mean, how do you? How can people reach out to you? Where should they reach out to you?
There's a contact form on the website. So I believe it's on the footer at the bottom of the page. So there's a contact form. Also, we're on Instagram. It's BackEmbrace, like embrace, like a hug. Yeah, or Kara at backembrace.com. And it's Kara.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Kara. Thank you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Take care.
Thank you.